Hey, welcome to the Couch GM. There was massive news on Friday coming out of Seattle that the Seattle Mariners were able to lock down their superstar rookie center fielder, Julio Rodriguez, to a massive contract extension that very well may last throughout his entire career and could end up being the largest MLB contract in history. So let's get into what that looks like. This is one of the more complex contracts to come about. And really the only simple thing about this contract is that there is a full no trade clause. So Julio cannot be traded to any team throughout this entire contract, which is great. The bare bones of this contract are a 7-year, $119.3 million contract, which includes a $15 million signing bonus. And this contract starts in 2023, so starting next year. And the base contract runs through 2029. After 2029, there are a couple options. Either the Mariners can pick up their club option for 2030 and beyond, or if the Mariners were to decline their club option, which is highly unlikely, then Julio could pick up his player option, which would have different circumstances. Now, assuming the Mariners pick up that club option for 2030 and beyond, they actually have to decide on picking up that option after 2028, and the size and length of that team option is dependent on Julio's performance from 2022 through the end of 2028. So if we come down here looking at the 2030 club option, which must be decided on after 2028, depending on the amount of MVP votes that Julio gets between that span and how many MVPs he wins, his contract can span anywhere from a minimum of 8 years, $200 million, which is $25 million a year annually, up to a 10-year, $350 million contract, which would be $35 million annually. So let's say Julio wins 2 MVPs or he gets 4 top 5 votes in the MVPs during that span, then his new contract would turn into a 10-year extension at $350 million total, which is $35 million a year. And that would bring the grand total of the contract up to a 17-year, $469.3 million contract, which would be the largest contract in MLB history and one of the largest contracts in all of sports in history. Now, let's say the Mariners decide to decline that club option for 2030 and beyond, which is highly unlikely because we all assume that Julio is going to perform at a very high rate. But if they were to decline that club option, Julio would have the option of picking up a player option, which would be a 5-year extension. This player option could span anywhere from a 5-year, $90 million contract up to a 5-year, $125 million contract, depending on the amount of Silver Sluggers, All-Star selections, and MVPs that Julio wins from 2022 to 2028. Since Julio has the option of picking up this player option no matter what, technically the total amount of money that Julio is guaranteed is at least $209.3 million, including that first 7-year contract and then plus that base amount of his player option if he were to pick that up. And then, as typical, there's various other bonuses that are included in here. So he'll make a certain amount of money if he wins the MVP, if he wins the World Series MVP, the League Championship Series MVP, Silver Slugger, Gold Gloves, or any All-Star selections. Not only is this a big deal because it could be the largest contract in MLB history, but it also shows a new way of how to structure a contract to give the player the incentives as well as the guaranteed money. Julio gets a guarantee of $209.3 million, with the incentive of being the highest paid player in history, assuming that he lives up to his potential, which both Julio and Seattle believe he can do. It's also big for Seattle because it shows other players on the team as well as future free agents that Seattle is willing to spend and commit to players when the time and the opportunity is there. Julio Rodriguez very well might be the next face of baseball, and to have him recruiting for your team for the next 17 years potentially is a big deal. It's also big that the club won't have to compete with the open market once Julio reaches free agency, and they won't have to go through a scenario like the Nationals did with Juan Soto, or like the Yankees are currently going through with Aaron Judge. And I'll end this video with a snippet from Julio's press conference over the weekend.
Yeah, I'm just happy to be a Mariner. I'm just happy to be a Mariner for as long as I can. Happy to you guys for giving me the opportunity to change my family's life. Not today, but 2017 when you guys gave me the opportunity. And since that day, I felt committed to you guys. And as Ulysses said, this is not about the contract, how long it is. I would love to be a Mariners for the rest of my career and play in front of the Mariners fans. For the rest of my career, play with a lot of these guys here, being managed by Scott, having Ty as my babysitter, be with Mitch, everybody. Like, I genuinely mean that. I love being here. I love being with everybody. And I love to keep representing this city and bring a championship because that's how we want here. And I know that's what we're driving for. Win for the city, win for these fans.
All right, guys, goodbyes only. Don't forget it.
Stop it.